do some sketchy shit. Do-da, do-da, hope I get away with it. Oh, do-da-day.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Last Man Standing. At the moment, I am all alone. Everybody has been calling in tonight just a little bit early, but Rich may show up in a few. Joe Bachman has gone to bed because he's had a very, very full day. Dawn and Donna are still recovering from the NDCD Con this weekend. Uncle Carl probably has been herded to bed by the cats. So, if so, I'll vamp for a little while, and when I get tired of having nothing to say, I'll go run the end credits. But that's neither here nor there. If you missed Stupid O'Clock tonight, it was its usual case of inappropriate awesomeness that we usually do come up with. I mean, Last Man Standing has been accused of being green room light, but Stupid O'Clock can stray into that territory so easily. And we do it so well. But it's all meant in fun. It's all to have a good time. It's all meant to socialize with our friends that are too far away to see in person. The people that we have grown to know and love from conventions all over, from streaming shows, from interview shows, from all sorts of shows on YouTube and the wider realms beyond. It's a way to get to spend time with friends that you don't have a physical way to spend real time in the flesh with. And so is this show. I'm saying too much, but then again, you try doing this stuff without hemming and hawing, and see what you get. Uh, yes, thesis. You've got the dreaded allergy. Do take care of yourself. Um, really, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I want you to take care of yourself, my brother. You have your own stuff to do. You got a tea house coming up either this Saturday or next Saturday, as I remember, because it's every other week. So you got to be on target for that yourself. So take care, get well. Um, I don't know how long of a show I can do by myself, but I'm certain someone will appear by hook or by crook. Um, don't know if I should summon anyone, but that would be awesomely impressive, wouldn't it, if I were able to? So it doesn't matter. Um, let's see. I have now been retired. See what time of night? It's not past midnight yet. Yes. I have now been retired for 20 days. Tired. As in, not having to wake up with an alarm clock and else I want to be part of never mind the furthermore or have an appointment to take the dog to the vet or take my wife somewhere. Hey, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I've gotten like 3 months ahead on um, replying to the submissions to Aphelion. I've learned the ins and outs of the basics of two new graphics programs that I'd never seen before I retired. And I am slowly learning the ins and outs of OBS to do a recording of me actually composing music because several people have been asking for me to do this thing to show off how I do what I do. Uh, OBS is not something with a gentle learning curve. You've really got to do a lot of research to be able to use that program effectively. It will be awesome when I figure out what I'm doing wrong and finally correct that. I know it's not the program, it's me not being able to punch in the right settings at the right time to do the right things. It'll be fine. I have time. I've also written a couple of stories. I've written a couple of pieces of music. I did one for thesis for his tea house. And I'm very glad that he did that to use as a soundtrack for introducing all of the short, pointy things in his personal collection, in his armory. I'm very, very gratified that it was good enough for someone whom I admire so well to think that it was worth including in their video. Teresa Dunn, hello. Um, how are you doing? It's been a while, but I'm okay. Hope you are too. Um, we're just kind of proceeding on and vamping as we must in times of short shrift. Now, I have been working on a couple of stories that are longer. I have been working on a couple of Marini Broom stories for the next for the volume 2 of Tales from the Marini Broom. Spaceport Bar stories are fun to write. They really are. I enjoy that quite a lot. Um, I've actually got the most recent additions to the fantasy novel that I've been working on. I admit it's been stalled out for a while, but that was my fault. I made the conscious decision to try and make it fit to a formula, and the characters stopped talking to me because they were pissed about that. The way that I write is pretty much stream of consciousness. I set up the situations, I do world building, I encounter these characters, and after a very short while, they begin just telling me what they're saying and what they're doing. I'm basically taking dictation, and they are going through the story, and I follow them. When I tried to lead them, they got pissed. They stopped talking to me. They're beginning to talk to me again, but it's more like, are you really ready to go back to what works best? And yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. I want to finish this. Um, because when I do finish that, I have an oil painting I'd like to do. And I haven't done any oil painting in a long time, but it will be a submission for the cover art to the novel. Now, just because I'm the writer doesn't mean that my publisher is going to go, hey, this is what he wants, this is what he gets. No, I have got to do acceptable cover art. And really, the thrill of doing another painting, to um, step back from the auditory or the descriptive parts of what I love to do with writing or telling stories or making music or whatever, and actually get to put paintbrush to canvas is a thrill all of its own. And I have missed that because I have not done it in a long time. I've had an entire lifetime of training of how to do things and create things and use different medium and even uh, in several cases multimedia. And I missed it. I missed it quite a lot. I think my mom will be happy because she's been my primary art teacher all of my life. My mom, her first job out of well, while she was still in high school, before she ever graduated, before she ever married my dad, her first job was working in a photography studio doing color tinting of black and white photographs using paint. And she was fantastic. And she's only gotten better from there. Uh, Mom does oil painting. She hates her watercolors, but she's fantastic at it. Um, she has done glass painting, which is one of those mind twisting things because you have to paint the foreground before you can do the background. It's reversed to a normal painting on canvas. So that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Um, I might attempt that at one time. I don't know. I believe I might could pull it off, but it's it takes a level of being able to think in layers, which a lot of graphic artists that use computer programs will be able to relate to. But it's, as I said, you have to do the top layer first, then you can do the next layer, then you can do the next layer, and it goes further and further back until you get to the background. Uh, However many layers that happens to be. Sorry for the long pause there, folks, but I was trying to collate my thoughts. It's like there's a Rolodex of 10 million things in there that are just spinning around, and I'm waiting on one particular card to show up, but it's more like a roulette wheel. And I'm betting on the color purple and the number 45, and that won't work. Whatever. Roulette wheel is probably not the best. Is it allegory or is it simile? Not sure. Doesn't matter. It was a colorful metaphor, very colorful metaphor. Um, don't think I'm going to write that one down to use in the story, but there are a lot of things that I have written down that I will use in a story later. Someone came up in one of the chats, whether it was live or whether it was text, I cannot remember which. Somebody came up with the concept of a helicopter pirate because they made a typo of helicopter pilot. And I go, ooh, I'm writing that one down. That may come in handy later. Don't know what I can do with it, but it has possibilities. It has very, very many possibilities. I've had a few people who have been looking at my Writers Challenge page over on Aphelion. That thing has been up for years. There's like 42 different uh, prompts, narrative hooks to allow any writer that goes through there and resonates with one of them to write a story. I do know that Joe Bachman has used one already and is working on a second. Richie has like 4 or 5 underway, and this is the way that Richie and I got to know each other. Is he used to read Aphelion back in the day, and just bookmark that page of narrative hooks to use exactly for story prompts. To when he was looking for an idea of what to do, he wanted to write a story, couldn't find um, an idea that was engaging right then, and I've got all these things sitting there, and it's triggered several dozen writers over the years in Aphelion to turn out some amazing stories. I mean, absolute nothing I could have written because they read the prompt, they read the narrative hook, and they take it in their own personal direction. And no two people have used the same narrative hook to write anywhere near the same story, although several have used the same hook. They always, and as it was meant to be, they always make it their own, put their own spin on everything, tell their own story. It's been a great ride. I really need to do some more of those. The way that I write myself for my own stories basically starts off with a narrative hook, and the story progresses from there. Sometimes I have to do some world building because in uh, it's not set in one of my excuse me, it's late, previously established world building scenes. I have a lot of stuff that I've done on the little planet that I made up. I've got a lot of stuff set in the spaceport bar. I've got a lot of stuff set kind of sideways history on our own little tiny planet. Um, and I've done other things that involve writing in other people's universes. That no matter how large or small the story may be, it still starts off with some sort of narrative hook that, with the first sentence, with the first paragraph, the reader gets invested and wants to find out what's going to happen next. Now, blowing my own horn, yes, I'm pretty good at that. Uh, doesn't mean I can develop a full story from that narrative hook, but it means that when I use narrative hooks that I made up and turn out a full story, people wind up really falling down the rabbit hole of wherever it is that I wind up the story leading to. Now, I will admit I am one of the world's worst at coming up with believable villains. So usually my best villains are some sort of natural disaster that doesn't need a speaking role. I have tried my hand at um, carpet chewing bad guys, and I do not like them. Oh, I do not like them at all. Not the villains themselves, but the execution that I've given them, because it's just I find it very, very disturbing to get into the mind of a thoroughly villainous character, even though they are the hero of their own story. And all of the the heroic good guy characters are their bad guys. That's a very deep concept in writing. But then again, it's one that is so well known it doesn't seem as deep. It's like a contradiction in terms. But I find that I can do sometimes recurring villains in a series of stories. They're not entirely fleshed out in any individual story, but if you follow the progression through uh, each of the appearances they've had, they get more and more fleshed out over the time. I think that's something I picked up from pulp magazines and probably from Lester Dent in particular. Lester Dent was the creator and main writer for the Doc Savage pulp magazines. Of course, he did a whole lot more. He did westerns, he did spy stories, he did all kinds of things. Basically, he was just a working writer who could come up with 40,000, 50,000 words of a story that was complete, beginning, middle, end, in about a month or so, maybe 2 months at the outside. And really, really well. Of course, it was back in the 20s, 30s, 40s. Uh, the the format that was acceptable at those times is a bit different than what we are used to now. Things have evolved, but when you get right down to it, a good story is a good story. I also learned a lot from H. Beam Piper. I also learned a lot from L. Neil Smith. I also learned a lot from um, James White, is it? The one who wrote the hospital station stories. Uh, Brian Daly. Uh, Fred Saberhagen. Definitely Fred Saberhagen. I am a great admirer of having um, Fred Saberhagen do this thing where he would have two different narrators, totally different scenes. They didn't know about each other. Somewhere near the climax of the story, the two threads combined. And then, as often as not, there were their own individual endings for those narrator characters. Um, I've often admired the ability to weave such a story together. I've tried it a few times myself. I was very young and I did not know as much about writing as I do now. So I didn't do it as well as I could do the same stories now. And those are still on a hard drive somewhere because I've copied them into different computers over the years to make sure they didn't get lost. Um, Now, one thing you've got to understand about me as a writer, it's very visually oriented. I've had a great number of people tell me that it was reading my work was about like watching a movie because the set, the setting, the set dressing, and the characters all work together as if they were cinematic. I took that as a really high compliment. It wasn't something I set out to do. It's just something that apparently I'm fairly decent at doing. And I'll take that. I will take that and I will run with it. Hmm. Always hydrate, especially when talking is such thirsty work. Often wonder how some of the old traveling poets back in the Middle Ages or even further back managed to be able to tell a complete story without becoming entirely too dehydrated to carry on. Um, Copious amounts of water or wine or beer or whatever. Of course, yeah, copious amounts of wine and beer, you wind up getting some um, flights of fancy thrown in there because when you get to the heavier beverages, your imagination takes wings, and doesn't even have to be beverages nowadays, does it? That's a topic for another time, probably not on a public broadcast, but mm, um, the good old days. Yes, I've been to college. Don't indulge in any of that anymore, but um, a lot of creativity had taken place while under the influence of something, because your inhibitions go down and the barriers drop, and you feel freer to be more creative. Now, the execution may suffer because you are basically intoxicated, but the creativity is there. And you can, as Nick Tockert always says, you can't edit a blank page. If you get the ideas down, you can go back and fix it later when you're not under the influence of anything except, I really like this and I want to make something of it. I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to straighten it out, and we shall see what we shall see. It's probably the reason I have a couple of oil painting. Well, couple. I've got 3 oil paintings in a few private galleries across the southeast. I don't talk about that much. I'm very proud of it, but uh, doing paintings is not my be all and end all, but it's something I enjoy doing. It's like uh, building the our dining room table and the bench seats, or building the all the bookshelves in the house, or you know, screening in the front porch, doing carpentry. There's something I know how to do, and I'm very happy to do it, and I'm proud of the work when it's done. And it's very rewarding personally, not financially, because I don't sell furniture. Um, I I might could, but I would be a whole lot more picky about it than I am for myself. Um, and sometimes it takes me years to actually finish a piece that it's not painted up or stained or whatever, but it's fully functional and I need it now. So for years, ate supper off of a bare wood table, um, unvarnished bench seats, things like that. Uh, the entertainment center that I built for the house, it started off as something I built when I was still living in a mobile home, and it wasn't until after I had moved out of the mobile home that I actually stained it and kind of prettied it up a bit because all I needed was functional. Uh, I would have been satisfied with some shelf boards and some concrete blocks if I hadn't been worried that the floor might sag under the weight and all of a sudden the entire TV and VCRs and the speaker cabinets and everything fell down in the middle of the floor. But this, uh, and I've got to thank Lindsay for prompting me to make it into a much more beautiful piece of woodwork. It's actually got trim and solid backing so that the wiring for the stereo and the TV and everything else doesn't hang down against a blank white wall. It's hidden. Uh, does make it a little bit difficult to swap out stereo components that have bitten the dust after long service. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, back in the day, uh, I wouldn't go to a showroom store and buy a cassette deck or um, an amplifier or a tuner or mixing that mixer. Yeah, I started to say mixing board. That's a totally different thing. I would go to I go to pawn shops. Most of my stereo originated in pawn shops. I got a good deal on it. Each individual piece of equipment. Uh, I kept doing that when I was doing the garage band stuff. My bass guitar, my electric guitar, amplifiers, synthesizer. Well, I did go to a showroom in Atlanta and buy a couple of new synthesizers, but I also had bought other stuff from pawn shops. Um, there's no shame there. Uh, other musicians or I hate to say wannabe musicians because they probably weren't wannabe. They just found themselves in financial difficulties and had to part with something, usually to finance buying something better. And I bought their cast offs. At one time, the entertainment center had a cable box going to the TV and four VCRs so that if there was something on at the same time of something I wanted to watch, I could record from four different networks and still watch the fifth one live. Stereo equipment of all kinds. Uh, at one time when I was doing the garage band stuff, I had a full recording studio set up in my living room. That was fun. That was a fun time. Um, I worked with some guys that were they were very much ahead of their time, but at the same time, they were very much trapped in that particular period of time. We did some awesome stuff. Um, We did some great experimental stuff. Things did not work. I got tired of being the hangout host, basically. So I stopped, and some of them did not take it well, but there's no way that I could keep going. There's no way I could keep going. Uh, I wasn't running a bar. I wasn't running a place to come and eat my groceries and drink my liquor and then drink my beer and then leave, and me having to resupply my own needs. That does sound very, very petty. Yes, it does. It does sound very petty, but I was on a limited budget. I had to take care of myself, and I don't want to call them freeloaders, but friends who were innocent and uninitiated into the wide world of having responsibilities like bills and recurring debt of various kinds, car loans, um, rent, groceries, whatever, on a limited budget. When people keep showing up and cleaning you out of house and home without contributing anything except music, which, was reason enough for a long time, but not reason enough for me to go hungry or be unable to pay the electric bill or being unable to pay the rent. I had to call a halt to that. Didn't like it. Uh, let a few people come back and kind of trickle in that were more used to contributing. And we did some more stuff and got some more really brilliant music out of it. But just finally, it all drifted away. I think the first time I got married was when it totally put an end to doing the garage band stuff because I had a wife, had kids to support. Well, stepkids, technically. I hate that step word. If I raised them, they're mine. Um, was not a perfect match. Um, ended within 5 years. And along the way, my point of view changed and everything in my life changed. And Richie's here. How you doing?
I've been better, been worse. Can't complain too much. I'm on the right side of the green. Anything else is getting greedy.
Yeah, I've just been sitting here reminiscing about my previous life as if it were a soap opera, but it could have been. So,
But yeah, it's finished getting Misty ready to bed and tucking her in and getting her set up on the app that our vet uses to push notifications for when our appointments are. So that we can just go and go, okay, Barry needs to come in for his next shot on March 16th. The dogs are due on March 20th and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
And then she finally noticed how I have Bucky's name in the app.
Oh.
So, well, she is adamant that Bucky is short for James Buchanan Barnes. I'm adamant that Bucky is short for Buckaroo Banzai.
I can see both.
It doesn't really matter to me. It's just I enjoy that she just gets so irked when I just say it's Buckaroo Banzai. No, it's James Buchanan Barnes. They're both great. Yeah. Why can't Bucky be a brain surgeon, rocket scientist, um, rock guitar, god, samurai?
Hey, I imagine the metal arm could really shred guitar, and I mean that without meaning tear the guitar apart, but he could probably play if he wanted to. And then again, no matter where you've been, there you were. Winter Soldierized it a little bit, but
Just a smidge, yeah.
it works. It works. I wound up talking about the writer's prompts a little bit. I know you got a few things in the works. That reminds me, I keep meaning to pull up the one that Joe sent me a little snippet of, so I could read it. And
All right, Dan, you want to taste something I started working on the other night?
oh yeah,
Farron gasped in pain as the world came back to him. Acrid smoke burned his throat and lungs with each breath. Heat washed over him. Lumber and rubble pinned him to the hold of the airship. He couldn't think clearly enough to what happened. He watched as the flames slowly crept towards him. Farron knew that death wasn't far off, so he closed his eyes and prayed. The weapons deck behind or below him started to rumble as the kegs of black powder began to cook off and explode. Right then, hell opened up and spat out a hero. Well, actually, a heroine. A voice called through the hold. Farron Halfblood, you have been claimed, but your time is not nigh. The bulkhead screamed as it was pulled away, and there she was. The mixture of smoke from the fires and the sudden light glaring in Farron's eyes made her hard to make out, other than she was tall. Inhumanly tall. Dad's side of the family tall.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Oh, you took that and you ran with it. Keep running.
Oh, there's another paragraph or so that I'm still thinking about. I'm trying to figure out how to best do it. I've got it. Not liking it completely, but it's there. It gets the story moving to where it needs to go. So again, I'm going to get past that, and I'm going to see where everything is, and then try to dial everything to be more exactly where it should be.
Yeah, editing is a thing.
So,
And
but I have been working on Hell Opened Up and Sped Out a Hero. I started this just the other night. This flavor of it. I've got like 4 other attempted starts.
hey, and they're each equally valid and may eventually wind up being.
Oh, they probably will be. There's probably
Well, I was just pointing it
6 or
out.
7 different ways I can go with that one.
I was just pointing it out. No two people have ever taken the same prompt and turned out anything like the same story.
Hell, I've taken the same prompt as just So one of the things that I do often is I will just take random prompts and ideas and just try to write 500 words off of this today, or write this many words off of this today, just to do the exercise of keeping to write, so that I can try to stay in that habit and keep working on my writing and stuff like that. I've taken the same prompt on different days and have gone in completely different directions and didn't even really have the same starting point, other than the idea that's around this prompt or that prompt. And honestly, Hell Opened Up and Spat Out a Hero is one prompt that I did use on a fairly regular basis for that kind of thing, for greasing the wheels and stuff like that. Because again, it's evocative, but it's not painting yourself into a corner where you have to go this way. You have to go this way. You know, it brings in that feel. It brings in that shot of espresso to the imagination, that just, hey, this is where I can go with this. You know, I took this turn with it last time. What if I took this turn instead?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, the other one that I like to fall back on is the I could kill a man for bad manners, so I was really glad when he took a shot at me. And then another one was being a wizard is centuries of extreme boredom interspersed with moments of sheer terror, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, because I haven't used that one in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's pretty close. And believe me, I haven't looked at those except when I was using them uh, since I posted the page. Now I have used several, but as I said, somebody else using the same prompt will come out with a totally different story than anything I could come up with.
Oh yeah, because I mean, this is um, the main ingredient on Iron Chef. You know, that kind of a thing, where, what can you do with it? Um, and it's honestly one of my favorite of all time tools to go back on, to basically go, what can I do? What can I do just to get something going? You know, either go out to Reddit and look at some of the prompts out there, which they got some really good prompts out on Reddit too.
Yeah, they
Don't get me
do.
wrong,
They do.
but they are a little more constraining than these narrative hooks. And I believe I have it in here. No, I don't.
That's
Why
what I
don't I have
think
it in there?
the strength of the Writers Challenge webpage is, that it's it gives you an idea, but it doesn't tell you what to do with it. So you are perfectly free to make it your own and turn it into whatever the mood evokes at that time. And if you come back to the same prompt later on and you've got a different idea, a different direction, you can do it just as well. It, there's not a this is better, this is worse. It's wow. Now I've got something different that this evoked. I hate to use that word twice in the same paragraph, but what the hell? Um, it's not like I'm editing right now. Uh, mm. Okay, yeah, editing. Psht. Um, I've got March's Aphelion just about ready to go. I'm waiting on the final word from the flash fiction editor. And basically, I sent him an excerpt from one of my steampunk stories because nobody had submitted a flash story when he usually has 6 or 8. So rather than leave that section blank, I just go, let me see what I can pull out here. Don't have time to write something myself because I'm busy trying to learn OBS and uh, the 2 graphics programs at the same time. And mm, uh, I don't mind learning anything, especially when they overlap, but it does sometimes make it hard to concentrate on doing anything fresh from scratch. So,
Yes,
yeah.
I can imagine.
Mm, well, I don't know that I've got OBS even figured out yet. But, oh,
Oh, yeah,
Thesis, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. You and Foxy are, Foxy dropped a light before she went to bed. Thesis, one wonderful part of the cold where everything tastes like shit. Yeah. Um, that's somewhere along the line of progression. Um, thankfully, I wasn't there because Lindsay made an incredible supper for us tonight. Um, Baked chicken, stovetop stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, and Brussels sprouts. And I go, inhale.
hamburger
Um,
helper, stroganoff. Me.
hey, there's nothing wrong with that. That is a very good basic meal.
I cooked. Yeah, it's the past couple weeks. Misty and I have just felt so under the weather and felt so much like crap that we very rarely really cooked anything. And I I'm proud that I stood at the stove long enough to do this.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's a good healthy meal. It tastes great. Uh,
Yes,
you
it's
can
actually one of the
add
ones
to
that
it
the entire
or
family will eat.
yeah, you can add to it. You can add sides to it as you wish. Anything is possible. It's a good basic thing. Um, I do believe my mother used those quite often once they came out during my late childhood because I don't think they existed in my early childhood, but and I have used them to great effect myself. Um,
Great way
and
to start your
now I
hamburger.
feel guilty because I didn't cook for Lindsay. She cooked for me. Uh, I don't get to cook for her often enough. I do need to rectify that. Um, I have a very limited repertoire of stuff I can do, but the stuff I can do really well, and she enjoys it immensely. Mm, as long as I don't spice it up too much for her.
If you want ideas on expanding your repertoire, we can talk.
Oh,
Um,
I've got an entire shelf of cookbooks here. I have been looking into combining what I remember from my mom and my grandmothers and my great aunt cooking for the family and what I have learned to do over the years and trying to combine all that into much more complex meals. Um, what was the last thing I cooked? I think it was uh, was just last week, or was it week before last? I don't remember. But pinto beans and boiled potatoes and something that got cooked in the air fryer and a couple of other sides as well. And I thought, hey, this will last us a couple of days. It disappeared overnight. Between Lindsay and I, it was gone. There were no leftovers.
I've got a
Uh,
very basic marinade that works good on beef, chicken, or pork. It is 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 1/4 cup of um, Worcestershire sauce, and 1/4 cup of olive oil with a liberal amount of uh, Montreal steak seasoning. Or if it's pork or chicken, just a little bit of the Montreal steak seasoning and a liberal amount of garlic herb seasoning.
mhm.
And then if it's beef, it's just a little bit of the garlic herb seasoning. And then if it is pork, I also put in about a half a cup of lemon juice or lime juice.
I've got one that I made up on the fly that I hope I can remember, but it was partly it was a beef roast. It was partly uh, red wine, a dash of vinegar, a dash of uh, Italian salad dressing, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, and I'm sure there's something else that I can't remember, but it was basically put all that in a 2-quart Ziploc, put the meat in it so that it soaks, turn it over halfway through the day, let it sit overnight, turn it over again in the morning when you get up, turn it over again, just so that it has a
We
chance to.
turn ours every like hour or two. We put ours in a gallon bag and then we put the meat in after. So I'm put all the liquid and everything in there. Then I mix it up. Then we start dropping the meat in, and we
Mhm.
mix everything around, and we sit it on a plate. And of course, Misty keeps sticking it in the refrigerator. I'm like, with as much acid and everything that's getting in there, there's no bacteria getting to the meat. It can sit on the counter for a little bit.
Yeah.
But she keeps sitting it in there so that the olive oil solidifies because our refrigerator's so cold. I'm
Yeah.
like, that doesn't do any good. It doesn't keep things liquid so things soak in. Um, but yeah, um, so I'm like, all right, it's everything solidified. We got to take that out. Yeah, but I flip mine probably every couple of hours, and then it's in that marinade anywhere from 6 hours to 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I think 12 to 24, but constantly turning it over, flipping it so that you can't totally fill the baggie with marinade.
Yeah,
Otherwise, the meat itself would lose its flavor. But I think it was um, a pot roast. I'm sure it was, and it got at least 12 to 18 hours in the marinade, and then into the slow cooker, vegetables,
and with the acids that's in
gravy.
there, that does a real nice job of breaking down that connective tissue so that it just becomes
Oh,
so tender and flavorful. It's not even funny.
I did not even need a knife. It came apart with a fork. I mean,
You look
seriously.
at it and it melts.
Yeah. Um, I do have that. I'm not going to go there. Oh, started to, backed off. No, not the green room. Besides, there's no lady here to embarrass. Uh, mm,
But yeah, but apparently my mother-in-law thinks that marinade is the best thing she's ever tasted as far as um, uh, applying that to meat. Again, leaving that for that anywhere between 6 and 24 hours ish at least, time frame, and then cooking it on the grill. She thought that was the best
mhm.
pork chops that she'd ever tried.
Yeah, with pork chops, what I like to do is buy some sauerkraut and layer the sauerkraut and the pork chops in the slow cooker and let it go all day long. And then towards the end, go ahead and throw together some sides. Um, and when you do it right, the pork chops just melt off the bone. The sauerkraut is just there is an accent mostly, but
Now, do you do what the package says and drain all the liquor off of the sauerkraut and rinse the sauerkraut before, you know, cooking it? Or are you, like me, just open the bag or jar or whatever and just, there we go?
both depends on what I'm in the mood for. Depends on whether it is in the slow cooker or on the stove. Um, if it's on the stove, probably going to drain the juice off, but it might get added back later. In the crock pot, usually it's just open, dish some in, pork chops, dish some more sauerkraut, pork chops. We'll just layer it up until you're out of pork chops and you're out of sauerkraut. Let it go all day. Um, you know it's going to be cooked. The big thing is making sure that you don't turn it off of high too soon, because then the wait time increases. Because the meat may be cooked, the sauerkraut may be mostly cooked, but the flavors are not going to be transferred as well.
You're not going to have that marriage of flavors just quite yet.
Hmm That and some baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, whatever, uh, fresh or even frozen greens, broccoli, carrots, peas, whatever. You know, to your own preferences to what you enjoy. Um, Now, one thing I have been trying to master is one of those old bamboo steamers. Picked one up at a thrift store. I'm going, I always wanted one of these. I don't know if it's going to work. Uh, I have made a halved bell pepper stuffed with the same cheeses and meat as you would find in a Philly cheesesteak sandwich. Get the bell pepper steamed, start layering in the cheese and the meat, stick it in the oven for a little bit to warm the meat and melt the cheese, pull it out, and devour. Oh my. Um, I'm glad I bought the bamboo steamer. I really am. I think I've even got a photo series somewhere on Facebook where I did the stuffed bell peppers, the Philly cheesesteak stuffed bell peppers one day. Um, that were a good day, and they were there once again. There were no leftovers. Um, Lindsay and I devoured the entire thing. Um, Possibly two sittings, but they were not very far apart. Um, uh, Lunch and dinner, basically. Although Lindsay would have probably called dinner high tea, although we didn't have crumpets and clotted cream and jam, but she's done that too, and I'm going, oh, this is what y'all. Ooh, okay. Um, England's too expensive to move to, but I enjoyed the food. Uh,
Too expensive for you to move there, but you're glad a little piece of it moved here.
yes, indeed. And the two vacations that we took over there, although one was for a funeral, so it was not exactly a vacation, but we had friends treat us right and got introduced to a lot of the there there is actually a form of English restaurant called a carvery, which we have a parallel here, but it's not as good. Uh, those places where you walk around with a tray and you go, yes, I'd like some of the turkey. I'd like some of the roast beef. I'd like some of this. I'd like this vegetable and this vegetable and this vegetable. And you basically just load up however many plates you are capable of demolishing in one sitting. And it's
That
okay.
reminds me.
The closest parallel I can draw is if 8 or 10 different Southern grandmothers opened a restaurant and they specialized in home cooking. And it was basically lunchroom style where you pick and choose what you want. And everything turned out to be like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas feast. And they do this every damn day. Uh, that's what these places are like over in England. They are just
You talking
amazing.
about that reminds me of Fogo de Chao. Um, I don't know if they've got any around where you're at, but up here, I can't remember the exact name of what they're supposed to be, but basically it's a Brazilian steakhouse where it does exactly the same kind of thing, where they're walking around with skewers of filet mignon and other cuts and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, here you go. And it's it it's a pricey little place to go.
But
Um,
it's worth it.
oh yes, oh yes. So for Christmas, I bought my son and daughter-in-law a gift certificate, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law a gift certificate, and I also got a gift certificate of that value for Misty and myself. I just realized and remembered that I have 26 days to go and use the bonus gift certificate that they sent me because I spent so much money that here's a $100 gift certificate for you on us. So I've got to spend that by the 25th of March. That $100. The rest of the, the bigger gift certificate that I bought for Misty and I don't have to spend for a while. But you saying that, I'm like, that reminds me, I've got to go and we've got to do this.
You've got to go. You've got to go. Start packing now.
Get this free money. Well, and it's only hour and a half drive. But it's worth it. Well, hour and a half for that one, 3 hours for the other one. The one in state is 3 hours away. The one in Chicago is only an hour and a half away. But it's
once you consume that much food, you're going to want to find a Motel 6 somewhere before you go home. just to take a nap in.
Or just wander around downtown Chicago for a little bit and work that stuff off.
Well, having never been to Chicago, I imagine there's a lot of fun stuff to do there.
Before I started working downtown, yes, there's a lot of fun stuff to do there. Working downtown, well, again, I really haven't been downtown more than once or twice every couple of months for the past couple of years. So, it's the novelty that worn off is starting to be built back up. But yeah, there's a lot of beautiful architecture to look at. But again, working downtown every day for so many years and walking miles to get to, it's like a mile at a time, but I mean over years that's a lot of miles. You kind of stop looking up and marveling at the engineering and the architecture around you, and you're just kind of like, all right, it's 3 more blocks into the train station, or it's 3 more blocks to the bus stop, kind of a deal. You don't pay attention to the splendor because it's around you so much that it's like the novelty wears off, But again, like I said, working from home for the past couple of years for the majority of the time, it's not as workaday as it used to be, because again, my workaday anymore is the room you see around me.
I would say you've become less jaded, but that does sound like it's a pejorative term. As you say, the novelty has returned.
Yeah.
I used to be the same way about Atlanta, back when it was actually safe to drive there. Before the Watermelon 500 became the death trap that it is.
So you're saying before Washington crossed the Delaware?
Well, let's just say the scars of Sherman's March were still there, but I used to hop on my motorcycle and ride 90 miles to go to Atlanta just to go to a bookstore and a Blimpie's restaurant.
Wow. That brings back memories. I miss Blimpie's. Blimpie's, nothing against Subway, nothing against Jimmy John's. Blimpie's was the sandwich shop. Do they still even exist anymore?
I think they do. I think they do. I could be wrong, but I hope they do. Something that magnificent should not ever pass from this earth. Um, and the bookstore was not to be. Um, the bookstore was the size of a super Walmart. Um, I'd walk in there and I'd go, "Here goes several months' pay." Um, and on the same trips, I would go to uh, visit the home of the fellow who is now the director of the Atlanta Radio Theater Company, and pretty much um, intrude on their privacy. He and his girlfriend, significant other at the time, so that I could go through his Doctor Who videotape collection and see stuff I'd never seen before. Or Blake 7, which I have the entire series, but he was the one that introduced me to it, along with several other people at the time. Um, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go to the bookstore. I'm gonna get me a sub sandwich at Blimpie's, and I'm gonna go over and visit. Well, not saying his name, but and watch some Doctor Who. And of this guy's such an ultimate fan. His custom license plates for years have been Who 1, Who 2. Do you realize how early he has to get up in the morning to get to the DMV and make sure nobody gets those before him? Ah, and I'm sure it's easier nowadays when everything's online, but back then you had to show up in person. Uh, the internet had not yet been invented. It was
The
still a
nearest
gleam
Blimpies
in
to me is
somebody's.
about an hour and a half straight south.
Okay, well, about the same distance as one of the carveries you were talking about. Yeah.
Yep. And then about an hour and a half slightly north and east is another one. Just a little bit further than the one that's due south of me. So there's one in my state, and then the rest of them are in Michigan and Ohio that are near me.
Mm.
But
We've got
there's a new
we've got
one coming to Dayton, Ohio, so they are coming back.
Good. You know another thing I want to see come back? Del Taco. It seemed like back in the day, every time a Del Taco got built and started doing good business, there was a Taco Bell built right next door, undercutting their price, and the food at Del Taco was a dozen times better than Taco Bell. Now, a lot of Taco Bell fans are going to take offense at that. I don't care. You're wrong. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Um, seriously,
So
Del
Lawrenceville,
Taco is
Georgia, Beaufort, Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia, Lawrenceville, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, College Park, Georgia, Alpine, Georgia, and Hillacy, Georgia, looks like the closest Blimpies to your general area.
Yep, it was in Atlanta, just off of Beaufort Highway, I do believe. Um, would have been probably at that time somewhere slightly off of 85-75 joined together going through downtown Atlanta.
This is 6,300 Powers Ferry. Excuse me, Ferry Road. Looks like Suite 400, Atlanta, Georgia.
Hey, sounds like it to
Although
me.
that one says temporarily closed.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if the one that I went to on the way to the bookstore was temporarily closed as well, because it had been there for quite a long time. And it was quite a small shop. So, yeah, it was what 1980 or thereabouts. Maybe in the mid 80s. I'm not sure, because I didn't have the motorcycle in the 70s. Oh, that's right. It was an 81 model motorcycle, so I couldn't have had it in the 70s. Would have been after I got divorced from my first wife and bought the motorcycle off of her next husband. And yes, I do know how weird that sounds. He was a former British Royal Marine. And he was also someone who designed and made molds for fiberglass replica cars, but not the full size, but like carousel cars. And he also made carousel horses. Yeah, there was something he did as his artwork was he would make the molds and cast those out of fiberglass and sell them to different fun fairs and things that were traveling around as replacements for their old merry-go-round horses and whatnot, and little sports cars that would be on the merry-go-rounds in between the horses. He loved doing that. He loved doing that. And he was really good at it. But he wound up about to have the motorcycle repossessed because between being married to my ex-wife and his hobbies, he was running out of money real quick. And I took up I assumed the loan on the motorcycle and paid it off. And still got the motorcycle to this day, although it's a solid block of rust in the backyard now. It became unsafe to ride because there were some things on the frame that were broken, and I could not trust it not to fly apart while I was going down the road. So I wisely parked it. And Lindsay says I can have another motorcycle if I get one of those three-wheeled Can-Am things or something like that that's not going to flip over and that's big enough for people in traffic to treat like it was a car. I'm going, yeah, great. As soon as I have another $50,000 I could spend on a vehicle.
I think they're only about 20.
Well,
I think when I was pricing one, And then I was tossing a bunch of bells and whistles on it. I think it was only coming up to about 20.
The one that I was looking at started at 28, and there weren't that many bells and whistles left. But yeah, I think I had it maxed out just looking at what I was going to get, and I'm going, mm, uh, yeah, um, pretty much half what I paid for the house and 2 acres of land for a motorcycle. Um, if I was single, I wouldn't hesitate for a minute, but I'm married now. Um, but that was many years ago. I might actually have a better grip on finances and actually be able to do that. But you know what I would want to do? I would want to look up some of those home build one man helicopter companies and buy their plexiglass bubble to put over the Can-Am so it was totally weatherproof.
Your mileage is going to go way down as far as um, or I should say
Aerodynamics.
your gas consumption is going to go way up because of the aerodynamics. But yeah, at least it'll be weatherproof.
Exactly. That's the one thing I always hated. There was a time in my life when the only working vehicle I had was a motorcycle. And I spent about 3 years, rain, shine, summer, fall, winter, spring, back and forth to work every day on the motorcycle. I got very adept at stopping at a convenience store, buying a 12-pack of beer, balancing it on the gas tank, and riding home. Didn't even need a backpack. Uh, there comes a time. Oh, thank you, Dalton. Oh, I've been to Dalton. Yes,
And you'll be back in Dalton in October.
yes, I will. Uh, that's wonderful. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to bookmark that.
Otherwise, it looks like the closest to you is like maybe Smyrna or Tucker.
Smyrna. Yeah.
Smyrna.
Well, I mean, you're not from around here. You don't know how the locals say it. It's not your fault. Um, I mean, look at it. Look at a town called Marietta, but if you go there and say it that way, they're gonna look at you funny because they call it Marietta. Um,
And then you've got oh Christ, I know I'm going to mispronounce it because I'm going to pronounce it like we pronounce it up here. We've got area up here called DeKalb, but down there I think you call it DeKalb or DeKalb or
DeKalb.
DEKLA. Yeah, DeKalb.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hold the door. I'm headed for DeKalb.
but yeah, and then what we would pronounce as Lafayette up here, you guys, I think Lafayette, Lafayette.
No,
I don't know.
no, it's Lafayette,
Or
and
maybe it's just maybe it's like Alabama way that it becomes Lafayette or Lafayette or something like that.
Lafitte. Yeah. Um, Now, the small town my mom was from is La Follette with an O. Um, when it showed up on Unsolved Mysteries, because there were a couple of kids who wound up
They probably
mysteriously
pronounced
dead
it
on the
every
side of
other
the
way
railroad
but
tracks.
the right way.
Robert Stack could not say La Follette. He said La Follette. And I'm just going, you try that in Tennessee, boy, you're going to get a whole world hurt or laughed at. Um,
Column A,
yeah,
column B.
well, regional accents do tend to trump the perceived pronunciation from non-locals. As I said, Mayretta, you get looked at funny, and La Follette, it's pretty much phonetic, but um, Caryville, where we usually have our family reunions now at a state park there in Caryville. It's pretty obvious, but I have heard that mispronounced a few ways. Uh, so far, nobody's ever mispronounced Knoxville, but it could happen. Uh, Nobody's ever going to mispronounce Oak Ridge because they got nuclear weapons. So,
So, so long ago when I still worked in the factory. Um, for those who don't know, many years ago, I used to work in an injection molding facility. Started off as a person breaking the parts off the runners as they came off the presses, and eventually built up to the point where I was working on the presses and doing the mold changes for that kind of stuff. Um, but came across a bunch of bumper stickers. Um, and one of the ones that I love and has stuck with me to this day, or will stick with me to my dying day. I will learn how to speak here eventually. It's not like I do it for a living. Was nothing is foolproof to a sufficiently talented fool.
exactly. Exactly.
And I've taken that to heart when I transitioned over into IT and help desk. And even though I am now in IT training and I'm instructing individuals, it still holds true to this day that there's going to be someone, they'll find a way to fuck it up. They might not be trying to do it on purpose, but God bless them, they will. And it's just it's that's one of those maxims that stick with you your entire life. You know,
Hmm.
and then I had that prominently displayed on my toolbox.
Uh, I think the most relevant thing that I can remember in that vein is um, someone at a call center the first time ever having to deal with someone who calls in and says, I broke my cup holder. Yes, I know you know that story. I can see the pain in your eyes.
I've lived
Oh,
that story.
yeah,
I've lived that story.
that's definitely an ID10T problem. Uh,
Well, granted, that person also passed the bar before my birth. So these newfangled computing boxes aren't something that they were used to. And granted, this
uh,
was a call from like 20 years ago.
yeah. Oh, that was one of the earliest um, IT stories I can remember from back when I first got online. And computers with CD drives were just brand new. Uh, and people were going, "Oh God, yes, I remember that. I remember that." And it just seemed like it was so prevalent that somebody thought, "Oh, the drawer that comes out of the computer is for your 7-Eleven slushie." No, uh,
I
not
remember the first time
quite.
I came across that little trick button thing where, you know, press this button here to access your secret cup holder on your computer. I'm like, secret cup holder on my computer? Did that, and then my optical drive opened. I'm like, oh no, no, there are people. Oh no.
There are people. There were people. Thankfully, uh, several generations have passed since then. Oh Lord. Uh,
And I was still in my teens then.
uh But
Yeah,
you
and I'm
you
like, oh,
you are decades
that's
younger
gonna be
than me,
bad.
so uh ah, it's probably about time I changed the Salon Pass patch because I've had this sucker on most of the day, and it only lasts for like 8 hours. And I am
Oh,
trying.
allegedly 8 hours.
Hey, um, I have been known to put them on at noon and take them off like 9 o'clock the next morning. Um,
Usually they last me about um, maybe 4 to 6 hours.
yeah, but I'm
On a
trying
really bad day, maybe
desperately.
3.
I'm trying desperately not to have to take more ibuprofen or Aleve or anything. Uh, the These things don't mess up my stomach,
Yeah.
so yeah. Had a slightly awkward time today, knowing that I had to get Lindsay and the dog to the vet. Not that we had an appointment. It was just kind of walk in, weigh the dog, um, find out whether or not we've been able to get her to lose the weight the vet wanted her to lose. And she has lost 10 pounds since February 9th. So she's doing good. Uh, she's still 10 pounds overweight, but she's lost 10 pounds. So, hey, we'll take that as a win and keep progressing
Going
in
in the
that.
right direction. You can't complain.
Yeah, really, we'll take that as a win for now, and as long as we can keep her out of the cat food. And unfortunately, she's no longer allowed pizza crusts and things like that because it's entirely too fattening. Um, and in my youth, we raised all kinds of dogs on table scraps and really cheap dry dog food mixed together. Um, there were so many bird dogs.
But again, bird dog. So you were going out, you were hunting with the dogs. You were doing a lot more
Regular
than
exercise, yeah. Every weekend is either quail, pheasant, dove, or whatever. And these were highly trained birds. I mean, seriously, you put a bird out of midair, send the dog to retrieve it, dog brought it back uninjured because of their training. You were able to cook that bird. The dog did not swallow it on its way back to bringing it to you. Um, yeah, when I talk about my childhood, I sometimes get the feeling that people think I'm making shit up. But
Well,
I
I
was
get the same
raised by
thing.
people that um, survived the Great Depression, survived World War II, um, survived Appalachia with
Yeah,
no
that one
money.
my family didn't do. Getting through the depression and stuff like that. Yeah, it's my family experienced a lot of that too. So some of the same um, ideologies of get out there, do stuff. Um, I I remember being younger and being able to be outside in 100-degree weather and be like, I'm perfectly fine. And
Oh,
and
really? Yeah.
and and
Um,
and run around back when I actually could run. And now it's like I think about 100 degrees and I'm like, I think I just had heart palpitation. Um, but my kids, 100 degrees. Are you stupid? Excuse me. What did you call me? You want to walk around the apartment complex a couple of times? Um, that's
barefoot
abuse.
on the blacktop.
No, no, abuse is what's going to happen if you don't get the hell out of my apartment. Um,
Uh, no.
but
Yeah. I keep telling the stories. I've written them down somewhere, sometime. The Midnight on the Tractor of Introspection will be released, and it's basically me telling stories about what I witnessed when I grew up and how I was on the cusp of people who were reluctantly leaving the 19th century to join the 20th century. And there were all these. When I was a kid, I'd go visit one of my grandmothers. There was an old what would have been at the time a shopping center, but nobody would have called it a shopping center because it was just a row of stores with what used to be a stagecoach livery stable in the back, and there were still uh, signs in the windows left over from the Depression where loaf of bread 12 cents, dozen eggs $1. Um, Empty stores. I mean, totally empty storefronts. You could walk by and they were there for decades, and it was um, you could drive around, uh, take the shortcut from the church to the highway, and you drive past an old Packard or Ford sitting on the road that you drive past it and you go, that looks like something Al Capone or one of the other Chicago gangsters would have loved to have had. Just decades earlier, models of cars sitting there rusting away. Should have been in museums, but no. Uh, it was, well, both sides of the tracks were the poor side of town. But nobody had time to look down on anybody else. They're just trying to stay alive. Um, Hunting and fishing were the way that you kept from spending way too much at the grocery store. Uh,
or with my dad when he was coming up. Then again, dad was born in 43. Um, my mom was born in 44. So their tail end of the depression is the stuff that they were dealing with and stuff like that. You know,
mhm.
there weren't a whole lot of grocery stores or anything like that, so to be able to feed the family, he and the family had to go out and hunt and stuff like that to get food on the regular so that they had meat on the table.
And growing your own garden. Seriously. Um, I grew up with home gardening as just, hey, this is how it's done. Or out walking the fields with a shotgun going, hey, ooh, pheasant. That's going to be good Sunday. Uh, yeah. Um,
Last time I was at my dad's mom's up in northern Wisconsin. Went down into the root cellar. Of course, to get to the root cellar, you actually had to go outside and around and down.
mhm.
But to get into when I got in the root cellar, there was stuff that was in there that was canned before your birth.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. When my
There might have
grandmother
been some
passed
stuff that
away,
was canned in there before Dad's birth.
and when my grandmother on my dad's side passed away, there was an entire closet full of canned goods. Uh, we're talking will-sealed mason jars, tomatoes, green
Same thing that I'm
beans.
talking about. Yes.
Yeah, and oh my goodness, there was enough food in that closet to feed a family of 4 for at least 10 years. Um, there were Sunday dinners where there was not only ham and venison and pheasant and quail and chicken that had been up and running around just the day before. Um, good Lord, the amount of vegetables, the amount of different kinds of meats, and it's just nobody blinked twice. It's like if you read, if you knew the kind of thing that I was used to as a Sunday dinner or a special holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas holiday dinner, you'd think you were reading a Charles Dickens novel because there wasn't much difference. But instead of being wealthy people in England, these are poor people in the Smoky Mountains. Uh, good Lord, uh, the the cognitive dissonance between when I was a child and now is really intense. But
The funny thing is, you take a look at what people consider an artisanal meal today. You know, the wild caught fish with the the grainy bread and stuff like that. Um, that was the poor person's meal in Europe in the Middle Ages, and the
mhm,
expensive meal was the white bread, the
the
everything
unhealthy
that
shit. Yeah.
yeah, the stuff that we feed the poor people today. It's gone exactly opposite. And the funny
Well,
thing
yeah.
is, the more processed something is, the cheaper it is. And that doesn't make sense because you've got to expend resources, manpower, and energy to create that 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 processed product where you just got to go out and pick the shit and send it somewhere
Uh-huh.
for the unprocessed stuff.
Yeah. My great aunt and uncle that lived across the road from my paternal grandmother, they still had a smokehouse with sausage hanging in it. Um, my great aunt cooked on a cast iron stove the size of a Volkswagen. Uh, she could she could make a birthday cake at the same time as making biscuits and gravy and scrambled eggs and ham and good lord, the woman, if you gave her an electric stove, she wouldn't know what to do. But you gave her one that you chunked in wood and coal, and she could turn you out a meal fit for a king. And people now look at that as the refuge of the poor, and I'm going, we were a hell of a lot richer than what you think we were. Um, Self-sufficiency, uh, use it up, wear it out, make it do.
The thing is, people conflate lack of money with lack of substance of life. Now, back in those days, um, hell, even back in my youth, it's my parents weren't extravagantly rich. I mean, technically, my father was rich because, I mean, that is our name. But, anyways, um, he didn't have a lot of money. My mom didn't have a lot of money. My dad worked very often 20 hours a day for the majority of the year to make sure that we could have what we needed for the house. Utilities paid, mortgage paid, clothes on our back, you know, um, food in our belly, that kind of a deal. And my mom worked in a grocery store, so my mom got a bunch of deals. Because she knew when the sales were coming up, so she knew when to stock up on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, my my mom made our money stretch so that we didn't realize how little money was in the bank because there was always food in the fridge, food in the pantry, food on the table.
Mm-hmm.
None of it was out of date. None of it was rotten. Now,
And
my
none of it
mom
got wasted.
did teach me, that, best buy, you know, what we think is an expiration date on many cans is a best buy or, you know, um, best before kind of date and stuff like that. That it doesn't mean that the day of suddenly it's rotten. It means that they can't guarantee the quality past X date.
Yep.
So I've got a sister-in-law that used to work as a store manager, then a regional manager for Burger King. And she's like, "Oh no, you can't eat that." Blah blah blah. I'm like, "Want to bet I can eat it? You're going to get sick."
Want to bet?
No. Just because you couldn't sell it in a store doesn't mean it's not fit for human consumption. Take what you've been trained about food safety and go against someone who was raised in the Depression or someone who's homeless. And I bet you're going to see things that are two totally different things. And I'm going to trust the data from the people who had to eat that kind of thing and survive over someone who has to make sure that the burger tastes the most fresh so that they can actually sell it.
Yeah. Okay,
And Mom's Kitchens haven't turned me wrong yet.
we've gone the full 2 hours, so
Oh,
let's
hell.
go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah. Hey, thank you for being here. Otherwise, I'd have been stuck going, for 2 hours. But Thank you very much,
I'm
Richie.
I'm I'm glad that I was able to help out, even though we rambled and went far afield from where you were talking when we first got in here. I don't even remember where you started.
We were talking
Um,
about writing when we first got here, but then, hey,
well,
conversations
when I first
evolve.
got here, we started talking about writing, but I don't remember where you were starting before I popped in originally.
I think I was talking about writing before you popped in. But let's wrap this up because I I don't want to hit the end stream button and then forget to hit the other end stream button for another 3 hours, like I did last week. And I'm sorry about there not being a um, a recording of last week available, except on Stupid O'clock, which is the full 5 hours, because I hit end stream and then I went to watch some YouTube video and then nodded off. I had the camera turned off, so it was just the background for 3 hours, not the top of my head because I was snoring. And we won't do that to Joe Dog again, I hope, um, for at least another week. Uh,
At least till
but
Saturday.
yeah, thank you very much, Richie. I appreciate your company. I appreciate your help. I appreciate your conversation. Um, we have covered a variety of topics, and I do believe that we may have piqued the interest of future viewers who will want to ask questions and have them answered in future broadcasts or comments on the show. So that's great. Love it. Looking forward to when I get to see some more finished work from you. Um, I'm looking forward to reading Joe Bachman's outline of what he is working on for a story. Um, I may do that rather than mindlessly watching YouTube videos the rest of the night. But for now, we have to say au revoir. Um, see you in the green room if you're lucky enough. And if not, see you Saturday night. Stupid O'Clock, Last Man Standing. Stupid O'Clock starts at 11. Last Man Standing will start at 1. I would try and be awake the entire time. Um, but, these things, they happen. So, bless you all. Thank you for watching. Um, like, share, subscribe. That's not really important, but I feel like I should say it.
Well, it is
Recommend.
important because it helps make sure that this ends up in their feed on a regular basis and that they see when the broadcast happens if they enjoy the show. Because, sometimes, shows like this can sometimes get lost in the rest of the mix of everything else that's going on out there. So if you do enjoy what Dan does, what Joe Dog does, make sure that you like on their broadcasts.
And really, encourage Richie and encourage Joe Bachman, and encourage Dawn. I mean, seriously, um, writers need encouragement. We need some kind of positive feedback so that we don't feel like we're shouting into the void.
Oh, wrong kind of encouragement. Um,
No, that's perfectly good encouragement right there. Uh, yeah, support us so that we can afford more expensive liquor. Um, it'll be fun. Trust me. Uh, famous last words. Uh, good night, everybody. I'm going to play the outro now, and Thank you, Richie. Thank you. See you tomorrow. If not, see you Saturday. If not, see you as soon as possible. And thank you, everyone that has been watching this entire series of silly shows that we do that are just so much fun for us to do. Because we would do it even if nobody was watching, but it's more fun when people contribute to the comments or show up and be on or just everything. So
It's an even bigger gas when we realize that people are enjoying what we're putting out there, and that we're bringing in something, a little bit of brightness, a little bit of laughter, a little bit of happiness, a smile to people that are out there
exactly.
that are probably really needing it, especially in the current climate of the world today.
Anytime we can bring a little bit more light into someone's life, we've done our job. Doesn't matter what medium we're using, just trying to make the world a better place to be in.
Being a
on that
lamppost in the
note,
darkness.
go good guys.
Take a light, folks.
Transmission overload.
System will shut down. System will shut down. System will shut down. System will shut down.
Hello, I'm Dan Hollifield. I'm the senior editor and publisher of Aphelion Webzine, the world's oldest free creative writing e-zine since 1997. Since then, we have helped over 500 amateur writers learn what they needed to turn pro. www.aphelion-webzine.com and read not only what we've got going on right now, but 28 years worth of our archives of stories. Thank you very much.